Okay, good afternoon to everyone who's tuning in. My name is Rebecca, and the segment that we are doing right now is CBS and the new education policy. So today we have yet again Miss Sandhya Gatti, who is in charge of the head of pedagogy and professional development at CBS. So, ma'am,
Thanks, Rebecca.
uh, let's start off by maybe giving a brief overview as to what exactly the new education policy is.
Well, education policy, as the name suggests, is a policy on how, something that the government, the MHRD defines as what should our education system look like. How should it be defined? Its structure and the content probably that goes into it and the way in which it must be delivered. And the NEP is basically a framework which is aimed at bettering the human resources in the country.
Right.
Because it's a Ministry of Human Resources.
Yes.
If we want to have quality, productive people who can contribute to the country's development and growth, it has to be at the level of education. And of course, school education plays an important role in our country, definitely. And that's what the policy defines. It defines the structure, it defines the teaching methods and the approaches we have to embrace if we have to have a very solid and effective education system.
Yes, I really like that you said the solid and effective education system, because it also plays into how we at CBS mold our curriculum.
Yeah.
So could you talk about that?
Yeah. I have been studying the NEP since its draft stage, and that was about almost 1.5 years ago when I started, when we started ideating and putting down what should the curriculum of CBS look like, right? So studying the policy side by side, while I was, beginning to draft the curriculum was a very, very important exercise and an advantageous one, because what we were ideating, me and Alan at that point, our director, we were talking about exactly the same things that today NEP describes in its foundational values,
right?
The foundational principles on which it holistic, development of children, having integration of disciplines, making it interdisciplinary, focusing on socio-emotional aspect, looking at restructuring of exams. So these are all things we were also technology. We are in a technological world and we can't play ostrich anymore. It's there. We have to embrace technology within our school systems as well. So, so all these, really, what I felt was there was such a good alignment between the curriculum we were envisioning and what the NEP already talked about. So for me, I feel today the kind of curriculum we have designed, right from the way it is structured, like we even in our leadership curriculum and in our 4 skills, definition, we have graded it level wise exactly the way NEP has done it. Right. So it is like 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and we have divided our goals also equally. With academic curriculum, it is more graded because children learn specific. They have to meet those specific milestones. But the good part is the academics don't stand alone. Just like the NEP talks about, blending leadership skills, blending leadership pillars, blending critical thinking skills into academics is what is missing currently in most of our, in the mainstream education system.
Right.
And that is something we are trying to do. And hopefully this will be a model. Chavan Bhartiya, I mean, it's a lofty ambition, but we would like to believe that one day we'll be able to demonstrate how the national education policy elements can actually be translated into a living school system.
Right. Also with Chavan Bhartiya, sorry, we hear a lot about experience learning. experiential learning, experience-based learning.
Yeah.
So does that play with the any like does that
Yes, it
go
does.
together with the
Of course it
NEP?
does. That's all. I mean, the good part of NEP, the 2020 NEP, is that it shows that the policymakers have actually taken into cognizance what makes for meaningful learning, what makes for lifelong development of skills. At least they've seen, and that's the big advantage, I feel. So maybe implementation is going to be a challenge, that's another thing. But the most advantageous or let's say the best positive that has come out of NEP is that everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
Everybody's talking about um, uh, what needs to change in the education system and how can we go about it. So that's the biggest, like I feel, there is a buzz around the policy, and educators, people in schools, even people who are remotely associated with education are talking about the policy. And that's like, I think, a very, very big step. And hopefully it will snowball into, implementation and some actual transformation.
Right. So we talked about how the NEP might completely change the way we do school.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But what are some of the like most positive outcomes you can see, like very specific positive outcomes you can see the NEP bringing in?
Well, again, it would be wishful thinking. Like I said, so let me point out some of the very good things which are hopeful. I mean, it is not going to happen overnight.
Of course not.
Like,
but
NEP says a lot of good things, but implementation is a different ballgame altogether. In fact, I've read the NEP, older NEPs as well, and the NCB. They all say the right things. They're all beautifully, they always have said that education has to be inclusive, all of that. But where it has suffered is, in the implementation. So that is still not clear. But good outcomes, some very visible outcomes, 5 years, 10 years down the line would be this restructuring of assessments. Like board exams will not become, memorize and regurgitate, but it could be open book, or it could be, on demand. Like answer the papers that you think you can do. Like a child would have a choice in which exam I have to give, and I can rewrite that paper later. This is actually mentioned in the NEP. So if that happens, the way we teach also will change. Right now, what is happening, the teachers are teaching to the test.
Yes.
Because there is this invisible pressure, people keep throwing around these excuses. The teacher says, I'm doing this because the parent is doing it. The parent says, we want the school to, we want our children to, the school is doing it, we can't do anything. So no, there is a lot of ignorance around, the policies. So what I feel is, if the examination patterns change, then the teaching patterns will follow. The change in teaching, the transformation in teaching patterns also will have to undergo similar changes. But you need some really astute educators to bring this policy into implementation. I do see a lot of challenges, but like I said, a start is a good place. Like we start, and then we'll see where it goes from here. just being very positive and optimistic. It has to change. So I guess that's welcome.
Positivity is a great way to go about this.
Yeah.
I guess for my last question, I would like to ask, how would the NEP affect a teacher's practice? We've been talking a lot from the students' point of view, but teacher, how does that change the way, you're a teacher as well.
Yeah.
How would that change the way we work?
Yeah. So one thing that I felt was not clear in the NEP was how was it going to be implemented. And in its very first, passages, it talks about the document talks about the role of teachers in the way, and it calls teachers the central piece in the whole idea. But it's easier said than done. because it has to start right at the teacher education level. So what are the latest practices? What are the, see, currently what is happening, the teachers come with a qualification, it could be a B.Ed, and sometimes even that is not asked for. So teachers just get into schools and they just trial and error. I learn by the, as I do more of teaching, I pick up nuances. Sometimes I have professional development, sometimes I don't. It's not like a constant. So here I see a little bit of a gap, not maybe it is a big gap, but how teacher education will actually help teachers take the initiatives in the policy and bring it into everyday classroom practice is going to be a challenge. But it will affect the way teacher, hopefully it talks about better pay for teachers, better status, and all these things. So it's not just one factor, there are many factors at play, and each impacts the other. So the whole social attitude toward teaching, toward teachers needs to really take a paradigm shift, and hopefully that will change things. At Chaman Bharati, however, what we're doing is considering we are very aligned to what NEP talks about. We have ensured that the teachers also have a dialogue on the NEP, so that they understand that we are not very different from what the policymakers hope for, and give them continuous and ongoing training in new methods and progressive methods of teaching and learning. So in that sense, that's why I said I'm ambitious that someday we will be able to demonstrate that working with teachers and learners and making all elements of the wheel, of the machinery work is possible, and we could have both academic excellence and as well as holistic development of children. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. This was a really, really enriching and informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who tuned in to watch.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.